tell you, being sheriff was one of the easiest jobs I ever had. See, when you want to do what's right, and you was put together the way I was put together, through working. My father died when I was 12. My mother told me when I was 12 years old, says, "You're a man now, you don't need no more whippings." I was 12. See, I helped feed the family at age 12. When I was not 20, but 12 years old. You know, I worked from 14 till I finished high school, 8 hours a day, and went to school. I worked. And every check I made, I signed it and gave it to my mother. Never cashed one of them. No. Sheriff was the easiest thing I ever did. Well, my name is Prince Arnold, and we are in Wilcox County, Camden, Alabama. This is the county seat. Small rural county in the black belt of Alabama. I come from a large family. It was 8 boys and 4 girls. It's a big family. I was the first to finish college out of that 12 kids. I wanted to go to school, and my mother wanted me to go. She said, "Prince, if you want to go, I support you." When I graduated from high school here in 1970, I went to Alabama State. I had $23 in my pocket. The key deposit to my room in the dormitory was $22. So that left me with $1 and something after I paid the key deposit. Like I said, I caught a white ride up there and went through 4 years. I didn't have any time to waste. You know, some kids go to school and they spent a year just deciding what they're going to major in. I had to know what I had to do. I had no money to waste. I had been drawing all my life. Ever since I was this tall, I've been drawing pictures and pictures and pictures. So taught myself how to draw. No art in the class, no art in the school. So I taught myself. I said, well, let me go into what I know how to do. I can draw. I majored in art, and I minored in physical education. Because my junior year, like I said, I got married, had a son, and I had to finish school, get out there and work. That's what I did. The first job that I applied for in Chicago, I wanted to be a cartoonist. So I applied for a job with the Chicago Tribune. I think that's the newspaper. I didn't get that job, but I ended up, I sold insurance up there for about a year or two in Chicago. And I learned the streets of Chicago by traveling, selling insurance. And, but I didn't stay very long. My brother, he died about a year ago. He was a little older than I am. He was here. He had been here all the time. I was at state and all that. When I came back, he wanted to go to California. So we loaded up in my little old brown Camaro, and we rode out to California. He didn't drive, so I drove out there. Stayed about a year. I always wanted to come back home. We all need to do some work at home. It might not be the same thing, but we have to do some work at home. So I made it back home. In 1978, the first part of '78, I was out there teaching at the school out here. And in the community, people were getting ready to run for office. They was running. It might have been the last part of '77. I knew the history of this county. This county at one time had between 28 and 35,000 people when I was a child. People were everywhere. It was about 80% black at that time, black folks. A lot of black folks down here in the black belt. I knew the numbers, and I didn't understand why, with those numbers, you didn't have any elected official, black elected official, not a single one, in no position. I didn't understand that. And I started looking at it. I started going places, talking. I found out they had been trying all them years, ever since '65. Every year, every 2 years, you know, have an election every 2 years. They've been trying to do it. Guys been running, people who were well qualified to be in the position. But if you never had anybody as sheriff, then you can't say you got somebody who know how to be sheriff. Then I started going to some meetings trying to find out why. And they told me why. You know, it was truly rigged. I hate to say it now. It was rigged. You couldn't win. You would always lose by 200 votes. You wasn't a part of the process. You wasn't polling officials. You didn't decide the polling site. That's where they actually go and vote. You didn't decide that. I started going to the churches, and people, they would always have a full slate of people running. County commissioners, tax assessors, tax collectors, judges, but nobody would ever win. So I went out there. I didn't have no money. So I said, I'm gonna run. And people were deciding what they're gonna run. They said, well, man, why don't you run for the tax assessor? You look like a tax assessor. I said, how do you know how a tax assessor looks? I said, I'm gonna run for sheriff. They said, why sheriff? The system was set up. Law enforcement, believe it or not, in this country, it's proven right today. Law enforcement decides the tone of any community, like these shootings we're having. It's deciding whether these people are afraid of whatever. It's decided. So if you don't have a fair person in the position of law enforcement, you're in trouble. We didn't have fair people, people who could treat you and everybody the same. So what I did, I went out trying to get people to run. I went to a good friend of mine that I had been knowing for years, beautiful man, decent man. I said, man, why don't you run? He was working over here at this mill in Pine Hill, making good money at that mill. They pay good money over there. He said, man, see, sheriff only paid $20,000 a year back then, $20,000 a year. He said, man, it just don't pay enough. He said, but you're a good man, I'll help you. See, what they had done, I didn't know it. They took a group of people to Montgomery and met with Governor Wallace and promised him that they would support a man named Moody Maintenance. The governor appointed his chief deputy, Moody Maintenance, to be the sheriff. See, the governor has that power. So he appointed that man, and these people were telling me, so I got up and, after I couldn't find anybody to run, I said, well, I'll run. So I went to this church and got up and told them, said I'll run for sheriff, and half of the folks, these black folk, got up and walked out. Said, you know, we promised the governor we were gonna help so-and-so. I said, I wasn't in that meeting when y'all promised him. I don't know nothing about that. We went out there, didn't have any money. This guy that I asked, the first guy, he came and gave me $1,000. He said, man, I'm not gonna run, but I've been here. I had been knowing him all my life. And he gave me some money. That wasn't enough money, because I knew, see, I had a plan. If I was gonna run, I was gonna win. See, so what I did, I started traveling then. I went to Tuskegee. Lucius Amerson, my friend, the first black sheriff in this country since Reconstruction. He was elected, they passed the Voting Rights Act in '65. He ran in '66, and he won. They ran a slate of black men in the black counties in '66. He won. Gilmore ran over in Greene County. Gilmore lost. Now, Gilmore was 24. He would have been the youngest, but he lost. So he came back 4 years later. He was 28 and he won. John Hewlett up in Lowndes County ran. John Hewlett, now he didn't run in '66. He came back and ran 4 years later. All of them lost except one. That was Lucius Amos. I learned from those men what to do. They told me certain things to do. I just didn't run. I put a group of people together, people I had graduated from high school. They believed in me. I put a team of about 30 of them together. They worked for me. So I put all my nephews together, and we worked, and we decided how we was going to run that thing. I decided how much money I was going to need. So I went to the bank, didn't have no money. I think they let me have $10,000. By 10, I put it in that campaign. We got people registered. We went out there and registered, put another over 500 people on the registration roll. We didn't just go out and pray. They talking about pray. We what? You have to do it all if you're going to get results. It wasn't no magic, it was work. On election day, we sent an army of people out to work at every polling place. Because what they did here, people, they would take the votes. They would say this was a voting place. And normally voting places back then was in stores, private stores. It was in certain churches, certain areas, places where you would intimidate people. You went in a little old country store and you owe those people $50, they could tell you who to vote for. That's what they did. So what we did, we sent a group of people there to watch. When they went out to watch, they were like disciples to watch. So we followed them back to make sure they wouldn't stop and change the votes. You had to do that. They would check to change the votes. You couldn't check. Who was going to check? They said that if the fox is watching the hen house, who can keep up with the chickens? They actually followed. These people followed, and they were in danger too because, and I can look back and say it. Half of the people we sent out had weapons. They really had weapons. They was ready for war. It wasn't easy. Some of these things you see people get done, it wasn't easy. And after all of that, it was 5 people running for sheriff. I was the only black runner. It was 5. Buddy Cahay was running, McGillivray was running, Moody Mang was running, Robert Rogers was running, and I was running. 5 people were running. 2 got in the runoff. I got in the runoff, and Robert Rogers got in the runoff. This is the runoff. Had to gear right back up and go out there again, but had to go harder. We didn't go the same. We went harder. We got more people out, and we supposed to have lost. But with all the cheating, so many people showed up to vote. It just a number they just couldn't defeat. It shouldn't have been on account of that 70-something% black. It shouldn't have been. People lined up. We had people lined up from here to the other courthouse waiting to vote. So we won the election. November, here come the general election. They wrote this man in. The federal government came in then. The federal government said, we're going to watch the election. We're going to find out what's going on. They wrote in this man over 3,000 votes. Wrote him in. The government said, you're going to have to spell his name, and it got to be spelled correctly. If it's not spelled correctly, then they're going to throw it out. But if we could have went to sleep, he would have still won as a write-in. It's only 2 or 3 times in the history of the state of Alabama have a candidate been able to win in a write-in. So we won in 1978, took office January the 16th, 1979. State of Alabama, the southern states, sheriffs are very powerful sheriffs. The Constitution provides certain things for you. But still, there are still prejudices. There are things that happen. The government, the state and the federal government worked against you. But we expected that. We didn't go in blind. You can't be naive. When you're naive like that, you're going to get in trouble. We expected to do that. We expected to be investigated. We expected to do this. We expected that, because we had talked about this stuff. You go into a position like that and you think folk gonna love you because you got there, you're crazy. You're crazy. Oh, yeah. You better get there and work hard, and you better learn the rules and the regulations. So we learned the rules, we learned them all. I almost got killed several times. God had to be with me. I should be dead now. You name it, it happened to me. During the time I was sheriff, one unsolved murder in 32 years, one. During the time I was sheriff, there was years we had 0 killings, 0. We said, how did we do it? I see young people now that I coach baseball and I talk to you guys. I can talk to people on the street just like I'm talking to you right now. But I think the biggest thing, I believe this. I believe if you commit a crime, you need to be punished. If you get caught, you be punished. If you went out there and killed somebody, we investigated it like hell. We gave your ass all the time we could. I tell your family, gonna send your little boy, when he gets back, he gonna be older than me. You hear what I'm saying? That's what we did. We investigated because I found out before they didn't investigate anything. They just hoped that people would find him guilty. We got evidence. I went to some training all over the country. In Alabama, I made sure all of my people were trained. We were going to investigate every case, every case. That reduced it. If you're having a killing every day, a 5 every day like they do in Chicago, it's difficult, but you got to get the staff there and you got to train these force, and the courts got to stop giving somebody 25 years for selling marijuana and 2 years for killing somebody. Now, I believe whatever I do. When I worked in the field, cotton field, I was good at that. I was good at whatever I do. I run a small security company now. I've been doing it for a while. I'm good at that. I just believe in working hard. If you work hard, you're gonna get good at it. I wasn't a hell of a ball player, but I worked at it so hard. I used to draw 18 hours a day. I would take a string and a rope and tie my leg to a chair so I wouldn't get up. I draw all day long. I do a little farming now, raise some cows. I'm good at that. Never raised a cow before, but I work at it. I'll be there at 10 o'clock at night. I work hard. And I'll be 68 my birthday next week. But I work hard. That's the key. To me, it was.